We're seeing a little bit of a trend that when people are moving or adopting into cloud infrastructures very, very quickly, usernames and passwords are the first things that are used. They're simple, it's straightforward. But studies have actually shown that, as you know, from a human psychology point of view, we probably use between 6 to 8 passwords in our lives, and we tend to repeat them. And repeat them everywhere. And you know, I spend a hell of a lot of time working with my customers and a hell of a lot of time working with the team back at Nowcomm to make sure that we try and change that behaviour. A username and password is not necessarily secure. There are things you can do to make a password more secure, and you know, we have various technologies available to help you achieve that. But first of all, we've got to try and change the hearts and minds, and let people understand the impacts of having insecure passwords. So one of those impacts, I guess, is if you're using the same password everywhere. We're all trying to get our shopping now at the moment all online, so we don't have to go out to the stores. But do we use that same password everywhere? Do we use that same password to log into work? And if so, once that password's been compromised, how do we think that actors or attackers out there are going to use those passwords? We've seen it quite common that the passwords that people use are repeated everywhere, and those credentials are actually taken, sold on the dark web to the highest bidder. So what's the impact? You know, what are people going to do with my credentials, I hear you ask? Well, they could open a bank account in your name. They could access your bank account if indeed you bank with an organisation that doesn't support you two-factor. They could buy things on your behalf, or they could actually access the organisation's infrastructure that you work for. And as a result of that, well, we really don't want to imagine what could happen. So one of the important things is to actually understand that passwords are important. Understand that we need rules, because we're human, aren't we? We can't remember everything, so there's various tools you might be able to use to remember passwords. Some people use password managers, other people use passphrases, and rather than just using dictionary words, they may actually mix things up a little bit to give people a bit more chance. The other area that we need to look at, and very important, is that a password alone is maybe not strong enough, despite the fact that we've got some password complexity in there. Technology is moving so fast now, we can see more and more and more mathematical, computational power in clouds. So people will actually be using this mathematical computational power to hack passwords. And you know, with the advent of quantum computing, I think we're almost at the point where you know, even very, very strong passwords can be compromised. So the simple thing to do to help with that when you're moving to the cloud is to consider whether two-factor authentication is available with your cloud provider. Two-factor can come in free forms or can come in paid for forms, and of course, like everything in life, you get very much what you pay for. We use two-factor from Cisco with a product called Duo, and Duo enables us to take our cloud security to another level. It enables us not only to secure our secondary levels of authentication and primary levels of authentication, and federate maybe with on-premise domain controllers or with Azure Active Directory, but also apply different policies depending on where you're coming from, where the request's actually coming from. So as you can imagine, you can provide yourself or as an organisation with some additional reassurance in terms that you're only ever going to allow access, for instance, from the UK.